You're listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for a music lover. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. Welcome to episode 29 of Tapestry, where today you'll get to hear me chat with every member of the Columbus, Ohio-based hard rock quintet Faith and Failure. We mused over a handful of subject matter topics, but mostly ended up focusing on things plaguing local bands today, including the importance of professionalism, faking it till you make it, and how oversaturation and the bygone appeal of seeing people perform actual instruments for you live has changed the local music landscape. You're listening to one of Faith and Failure's recent singles, Vampire.
Scratching at my neck won't leave me alone. Will you see yourself back in the sun? The light it stings while the night it sings to me. And I'm normal how a story I can't tell, but they'll see the gift they've given to me.
I have 4 out of 5 members of Faith and Failure with me here today. I'm staring at all their beautiful faces over Skype, and for the ease of the listener's sake, why don't you guys just one by one go ahead and introduce yourselves so that people can hear who is speaking, and we'll go from there.
I'll go first then. I'm Cole Kaluger, and I play guitar in the band.
I'm Aaron Perry. I also play guitar in the band.
I'm Nick Brady, and I play drums.
Chad Nash II, and I sing in the band.
So, all right, so we have Nick, Aaron, Chad, and Cole. Their bassist, Matt, is not able to be here right now. He might pop in a little bit later. But yeah, so you guys are Faith and Failure, and I guess I would kind of describe you as sort of heavy rock, metalcore, kind of a blend of the two, and you guys are currently active in Columbus right now. But I guess I want to thank Nick kind of for getting this set up, because Nick and I both went to Ohio University together, and we are both trombone players, and I met him through the Marching 110, so he's kind of my link to the band, but hopefully I'll get to know the rest of you guys as we go along. But usually when I have like a big band in front of me, it's hard for me to ask like super individual questions, but I usually like to start off by asking all of you guys sort of how your musical history developed, what instruments you started playing, and what kind of led you down that path.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and start again. I started in music in 5th grade, actually. I played alto saxophone for 4 years. Just came from a very musical family. I didn't actually start playing guitar until high school. It was like my senior year. I had just, discovered a couple bands, mainly Avenged Sevenfold, back in like the early 2000s. And then the thing that kind of put it over the top was I heard the Randy Rhoads live tribute album. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to play guitar. So I started taking lessons, and about a year and a half later, I enrolled in music school. And that's kind of been the journey for me. I mean, gone to school, done a lot of performing in all kinds of different things, but outside of guitar, I do play piano as well. So any of the piano stuff that you hear in our songs, it's usually me, trying to act like an actual piano player, I guess.
Well, I started out guitar, played a lot of Guitar Hero. To me, it was Patriani, Surfing with the Alien. I heard that, and I was like, that's amazing, and that's how I started. I didn't get into vocals really until recently, actually. I was singing in a band before this one, and that was my first band I was singing in. So I've been doing vocals probably like 3 or 4 years now. Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys all the original members of Faith and Failure, or have you had lineup changes?
No. I myself and Matt are the only two originals.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure about that.
I guess I'll go next then. I started playing guitar when I was about in maybe a freshman in high school. I just kind of grabbed onto it because Guitar Hero was really popular, and that was kind of like my segue at first. And then I watched this. My mom got me this movie. The more I got into it, it was called Eddie and the Cruisers. It was made like back in the 80s, and it was about this fictional band that got really famous, and then their singer disappeared. But that kind of really pushed me in and was like, hey, I want to do that too.
I have not heard about that.
Play with people. It's an interesting one. Not a lot of people know it, but that's also why I like to tell people about it, just because it's kind of a cool movie. And then from there, I just kept on playing guitar. I played in a lot of different bands that never went anywhere until I landed in my previous band, which we did some things around Columbus for a bit, and we almost had Nick involved in that at one point too. And then, yeah, after playing Hard to Get with Cole for about a year and a half, I hit him up and was like, yeah, I want to be in a band again. I want to join this thing you've got going on. And that's how I got here.
Cool. So that leaves Nick.
Yeah, so I started, like you said, we played trombone together in the OU band. So I played trombone way back, probably starting in 5th grade. And the music I listened to was really nothing like the music that we play. I was really big into Rush, a lot of classic rock. So pretty much nothing that I play now corresponds to what I used to listen to back in the day. But yeah, played in a couple local bands after coming back from OU. Like Aaron said, almost played in that band. I kind of caught them at the tail end of what they were doing, playing around. Jumped around. There's been a couple. There was a band local called Burning Bright. Same thing. I played a couple gigs with them. Kind of caught them on their tail end as they were kind of calling things quits. So hopefully this project keeps rolling. I seem to have a bad track record catching bands as they're on their way out. But
you guys are taking a risk having Nick in your band. He's gonna slowly kill you from the inside, apparently. But
yeah, I've been bad luck for a couple people after we did our Blitz podcasts. A couple people shortly thereafter have gotten let go from the Blitz. Burning Bright quit playing after we were on there. So yeah, it's not a good record with me and bands.
Oh, it's been really nice that this is my last episode of my podcast ever. I guess I'm gonna have to quit.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, but that's kind of how things go. So hope you don't want to do this anymore.
Well, hey, going out with a bang. No, I'll have to call my next guest and tell her that it's canceled. But well, I guess that being said, like, what kind of makes this project a little different? Have you all sort of come from different walks of life, or how did you guys meet each other? Were you friends, or just like people in and around the music scene in Columbus, or what?
Well, like the whole thing started. Like I've known Matt. Matt and I have been best friends since 6th grade, so I've known Matt almost my whole life. So that's how I knew him. And I've been wanting to do this band for years, probably starting back in like 2013. And it's just I got tired of doing cover bands, honestly. But where I was living at the time, I knew I wouldn't be able to get the band off the ground there. I knew I was going to have to move, which I was fine with. So I initially actually went out to Los Angeles and tried it there. Wasn't out there nearly as long as I had hoped for. Ended up coming back, called Matt, and I was like, I want to do this band. I want you to play bass. He was on it. And so him and I started down the path of trying to put this band together, and just didn't really work out. I mean, for numerous reasons, we could just never find the right people. Even got to a point where I had called old friends of mine who live like more in the Pittsburgh area about getting them in the band, and they were in it, but it just logistically it was a nightmare, and it kind of felt like we were never going anywhere. So we decided to sort of step back and have it be him and I again, Matt and I. And then I actually met Aaron at Sam Ash. I worked at Sam Ash here in Columbus. Like,
Cool.
I guess I started there not long after he stopped working there. And I always tell the story that he came in and he had an Avenged Sevenfold t-shirt on, and he started playing a Schecter guitar. I was like, I got to go talk to this guy.
Yeah.
So I went over and I started talking to him. And then that's sort of how I met him. And then I met like everybody else through Aaron.
Except me.
Well, except for Chad, yeah.
Craigslist.
There's always the one guy from Craigslist, and it seems like it works out. So hopefully.
Yeah.
So Chad was from Craigslist, and like I had said, Nick was almost in my last band, and then we died. So then Matt actually put a random post out to one of the 614 groups, and Nick responded to it, saw myself and our previous vocalist in the picture. He goes, I was almost in a band with those guys. So he messaged Matt about that Facebook post. And so it kind of just all came back full circle at that point. Actually, a fun circle. The day Chad sold one of his guitars that I was in there playing at Sam Ash one day was a guitar that I bought. So we all have like a circle coming back to each other.
Whoa, that's kind of bizarre. It's also funny because I can actually see you guys. Aaron, you actually look like my friend Jason, who plays Schecter stuff. He's a bassist, but I mean, I know he plays guitar, and I just thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah,
It must be there must be a Schecter look.
Yeah, there's definitely a Schecter type, that's for sure.
He's crazy about it. Like, I'm trying to learn bass myself, and he's like, oh, well, you really got to splurge and get a Schecter. I mean, honestly.
Oh yeah,
He's not wrong.
got to. He's not wrong.
He's
Schecter
not
Army.
wrong.
We're
Okay.
trying to
Yeah,
get.
we are very
Trying to
much
get
a
us-
Schecter band.
Trying to get
Yeah.
that sponsorship.
Oh yeah.
I play Music Man. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I like talking to people who are in bands that are kind of from, I would make the assumption, similar scenes to my own. And, you know, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Cleveland, all those kind of Rust Belt, partially Midwest kind of towns. I feel like we sort of have the advantage of having a very, you know, like it's a larger city, but it has a small town feel. It has kind of a tight-knit music scene. And I admittedly don't know a whole lot about the Columbus music scene, but would you guys say that your experiences so far playing, you know, crowd-pleasing music, like, has Columbus been pretty receptive to it? And what has that, I guess, journey been like, trying to play out and make a name for yourself?
Well, I mean, I'd say at least I can speak on our behalf. Aaron and Nick can tell you more about the scene in general, but at least for the band, you know, we've played a handful of shows now. And we've been very fortunate. Each show has had a bigger and bigger crowd. You know, I don't think we've heard anything negative. You know, there was a funny story Aaron can tell after our first show about people he saw in the parking lot who didn't realize who he was. You know, so I mean, people have been pretty receptive. You know, we've made some friends with other bands and promotion companies and stuff. So at least for treating us, you know, it's been nice. But yeah, like I said, as a scene for a whole, I mean, you could talk to Aaron or Nick about that one.
Yeah, the reception has been really good for us, and I think one of the reasons for that is we're a little bit different than a lot of the bands in the Columbus area. It's a lot more of like the metalcore, deathcore kind of really drop tuning, breakdowning kind of bands. Whereas, you know, as you said, we're kind of more in like that hard rock kind of end of things. So it causes us to stick out, but I think in a good way, because, you know, we're sounding different, and it's something that people can hear. The one joke we always like to have is like we're always the only band that has guitar solos, which isn't always true, but it's more times than not, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you guys sound very heavy, but I also don't get the feeling that you're like yelling at the crowd to start a circle pit at every show. Probably not.
Well,
Not yet.
That's gonna be up to Chad. He'll have to.
Yeah, that's true.
He's
He's
the
the
one who
front man.
yells.
Yeah, I think it's cool too. Like the writing style, I think that Cole and these guys bring to our music helps us stand out. Like Aaron was saying, we've got the guitar solos, whatever. I feel like I kind of had that with Burning Bright too. They'll do some different stuff, or they'll write not quite 8-measure phrases, or they'll throw in some weird stuff, or we've got piano. So I think that helps. We fit in with the heavier music, but we're not just super heavy. It's still kind of our own spin on it. So we fit in well, but we can stand out as well at the same time.
Right, and like your list of influences is all stuff you would hear on the radio, but it's not what I would describe as just radio rock. Like I think Cole, you had filled out like Avenged Sevenfold, Bullet for My Valentine, Ice Nine Kills, that kind of stuff. It's just like the very heavy end of the spectrum, hard rock, but yeah, you're not deathcore. I mean, the world always needs more of that, I suppose.
I mean, Jack can do those vocals if we ever go down that route.
Oh yes,
The pig squeals and the toilet bowl, like
yes, I can do
gutturals.
everything. That's my shit.
He'll be yelling
So-
at people to start the circle pits.
Yeah, so I'm expecting like a Splinter Faith and Failure band where you're only doing pig squeals, Chad. Is it gonna happen?
Eventually, it might evolve into that. Who knows?
You really do a lot of clean singing though, at least on the couple things I've heard. And I mean, you guys to me kind of sound like a spookier Breaking Benjamin hybrid thing, and I love it, and it's great. And I hope you don't take that as a negative. But I wanted to ask you about that because I think this interview is kind of timely. We're coming up on Halloween, and really your two bigger singles that are on Spotify, both Hero and Vampire, they're kind of spooky. You know, you're talking about like burning witches and vampires and stuff. So is that a recurring theme in what you guys write about, and who's kind of the one spearheading that subject matter?
So I'm just gonna chime for a second. I'm gonna let Chad talk about how he feels about singing these ones. You might have seen we were just kind of laughing to ourselves because those recordings are not Chad.
Oh, okay.
We just recently, well, not recently, we knew it was going to happen. We had a previous vocalist, and so he had told us ahead of time he was going to be relocating, but we were kind of in the middle of getting started. So we did things with him. We did pretty much everything that's been released up to now has been the previous guy, whose name is Sergio. So I'll let Chad talk about for what the doing the vocals is, what he thinks of the songs, and then I can kind of give a little behind the scenes on Sergio's brain on what they're about and everything.
Sure.
So yeah, I love the songs. But yeah, I'm kind of a harder music taste, so I like to sneak a scream in there or two. Yeah, and Hero, I scream that bridge now. And the songs, not Vampire, I keep that one pretty much the same as it was recorded because it's just so damn good. But yeah, songs are sweet.
Who kind of moving forward is the primary writer for the band? I mean, I know you're all working on your own parts, but is it you mostly, Chad, doing new lyrics and all that stuff, or are you guys pitching in on that?
Oh yes, it's me.
Okay.
I am the next best lyricist ever. I mean, I already am, but I'm undiscovered. I'm gonna sell out arenas one day. Mark my words.
It's like what we did with Chad and what we did with Sergio was I can't write lyrics to save my life. I always sound like a damn Dr. Seuss book, so it's bad. But so we've always just let the guys actually singing and all that. That's their territory. Like if they've got if they want to like ask for opinions or whatever, we'll chime in, but we kind of leave it up to them. So we end up tending just to do the music ourselves, which, since I've been wanting to do this band for so long, have just a crazy amount of music that I've already written that we're just kind of, okay, let's do this song. So like out of the 4 that are out, Hero was written by Matt and I, like all of the music. Of course, Sergio did the vocals. Leaving Behind was the first song I ever wrote for this band. So minus vocals, that was me. Vampire and the second part actually were written by Sergio. We sort of chimed in a little bit with some of the, like I took what he did instrumentally and kind of added a little bit to it, but we're talking a small percentage. I mean, those were him. And we got a new song that'll be out, should be next month, but it's another one that Matt and I wrote. The interesting thing is
Sleepless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And the interesting thing is the lyrics came from Aaron's friend, who then he sent to Sergio, and then they sort of worked through it and then but Sergio never recorded it, so Chad's actually recording it, so it's kind of a mishmash of everybody.
Yeah.
But
Is
Gonna be a tasty tune.
is it in general kind of following that same sort of lightly supernatural vibe, or is it subject matter that's different entirely?
no, this one, I'll let Aaron here in a minute talk about like the other one since he knew Sergio longer. But this one, again, Matt and I, we don't write lyrics, but when we had written the song, we had like the idea of what we thought the song would be about. And we, it was kind of, we wanted to make something that people might be able to relate to. So it was more of like somebody getting out of like a bad relationship, and kind of dealing with sort of the stuff mentally that comes out of that, especially if it's something that you did. And we wanted to tell a story where this person just, kind of went through that. And then at the end, they unfortunately they end up taking their own life. And so the demo of the song was called Suicide for the longest time. And then the lyrics that Aaron had got were from a friend of his who he had asked Aaron to help him with. And unfortunately, he actually ended up taking his own life as well. And so it was a weird way of how the subject matter kind of came about. What it was initially was initially thought of to be ended up being what it actually was about. But then Sergio, when he kind of worked through it, he kind of threw in some experiences that he had with like a bad previous relationship. So it was just unintentionally ironic that everything that Matt and I had come up with, at least conceptually, ended up making its way into the song. So no real supernatural stuff in this one, but probably from like a deeper level of lyrics, I think. It touches on a much more serious subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was getting ready to, but Cole kind of like hit every nail that was needed to be hit. Yeah, that's pretty much the entire story of that song. Which was, it's all kind of interesting how that all came back to the full circle again as well. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a heavier subject matter. And then I know as far as the other songs, Chad's been floating his ideas for the other songs that are in the pipeline our way, kind of seeing what we think of them. And they're definitely, I would say they're running the gambit a little bit. I know there was one that had a lot of, what was it, space aliens? Something to do with like space. And then he's definitely grabbing the baton and running around the track with it on all the things he wants to touch on. And some of them probably might fall into that kind of supernatural or unearthly realm, but definitely also some heavy. And he's trying to take the mic, so I'm going to let him talk.
No, it's not about aliens at all. It's about like it's comparing it's comparing the band. Basically, it's predicting this is kind of a foreseeing of maybe the future, and it's comparing us getting big to taking over the world and being badasses.
Manifesting your own destiny, I see.
Yeah, Pantera style.
Well, with all that kind of on the horizon, and now you guys have a solid lineup, and you're playing shows. Like I know you just got to open for Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, which is pretty cool. And you have some new stuff coming up. What is the next big goal you guys have in mind?
Playing in Pittsburgh.
Sonic
Temple.
That too.
Just echoing what Cole said, playing in Pittsburgh, and kind of want to tie everything together. I don't know if this is where you were planning on taking things or if this is now where the conversation's going, but we've actually reached out, thanks to you, some of the contacts you provided, helping make that possible. But yeah, starting to play regional with Pittsburgh as the logical next step is the near-term goal, I would say, for starting to expand and starting to reach some of the bigger goals that we're aiming for.
Okay, so you hear that, Tapestry listeners. You better come out to all their fucking shows when they get here, and I will make you come out. I'm glad that I had a small hand in that connection, and I do think that is a great next step for you guys, because I can think of so many bands here in Pittsburgh that I would love to see on a stage with you that would just fit, I think, stylistically. And that's kind of the beauty of getting to dabble in, all these online connections I've made, but then sort of seeing them like flourish face to face is pretty awesome. But, so you guys are working on another album then too, I believe, like your first actual full length?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was an interesting conversation that kind of started between Cole and I around the time we figured out Sergio was going to be leaving. And so we realized, we're like, well, we got all these songs, we got all these ideas, we've got people. Why not just keep on with the theme of being different and then, do a 10, 12 song album as opposed to anything else. And so that we pitched that to the guys, and they seemed to like the idea of it. I think Nick was one of the first to hear that idea. That was another one of those Matt showed up late conversations.
Just like usual.
Yeah, he's perpetually late, but so that's another one of the goals on the horizon, is we'd like to get that recorded, over the next few to several months, and then get it out there sometime next year, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was going to ask you guys in general, because you are kind of in that same vein of the types of bands that do get a lot of terrestrial radio airplay. Is there any strong opinion you have on kind of the trend with bands nowadays to, either it's like either you make a big old album and you have the types of listeners who will sit down and just go start to finish, or you have the people who they want to hear the radio ready single. They want to hear like, hey, this is the best this band has to offer. Have you guys taken that into account and like had that sort of change up your strategy for what you release next? Or are you just kind of doing what you want?
We do what we want, honestly.
Whatever the fuck we want.
I mean, to be honest, like, we're already doing stuff that, at least comparative to Columbus, is way out in left field. We're just going to roll with it. I mean, we're not afraid to have a song that's 7 minutes long, or, or to have long instrumental sections, or kind of whatever the idea is. We want to sound like who we are, and it's one of those ideas, like, we wear our influences on our sleeve, type thing. So I mean, I could tell you that, kind of just thinking of what this album would sound like when it's done, I would say they would all be radio ready, songs, but I don't think we have a weak one in the batch, and I think that any one of them could stand strong on their own. And when you put them together, that they just all sort of lift each other up, and makes it that much greater, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. I just know when a lot of bands hear like radio rock is thrown around like an insult, and it really shouldn't be, because there's obviously still an audience for people who want something that's gripping and heavy and fun to listen to, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I just know the way streaming services work now, I imagine, you really have to kind of change up your strategy, and it just seems like so many people now have access to stuff, so you almost have to work even harder to make yourself stand out.
Yeah, and I think
go ahead.
I think a lot of, kind of bouncing off what Cole's been saying, I think a lot of what we do too, we're doing it mainly for ourselves because we think it's fun, and so far we've gotten lucky that people also enjoy it outside of ourselves. So I think we're walking the fine line between doing it for fun and only we enjoy it, and just kind of fitting the mold and doing what we know people will enjoy. And so far I think that's worked out well for us. We're able to do off the wall things, but the way these guys write the guitar parts, the bass parts, the vocals, whatever, and then I'm able to apply the drums, it's stuff that we enjoy, and it happens to be stuff that's reaching other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for a lot of musicians, that is kind of the ultimate goal, is there's that huge importance of connection. And I mean, you can make an album and just throw it out in cyberspace and hope someone latches onto it. But I feel like most people, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like most musicians, they want to write with the aim of someone's going to see that on the other side and go, wow, I really like that. That resonates with me, or that connects with me. Is that a major goal for you guys?
Yeah, I would say so. It's not, it's not a be all end all. Like we don't write something and go, well, I hope to God somebody likes this. You know, all this, all the stuff that we put out. Yeah. I mean, all the stuff that we put out, we are 100% behind. We're happy, and if people don't like it, they don't like it. You're not going to please everybody, but
Right.
I feel like you can tell if you see a band, especially if you go to a show, if you see a band who, they're performing stuff, but you can kind of tell they're not really into it. And I think that translates to the crowd. And then I think it's just kind of like a death wish almost, so yeah, but yeah, we just kind of write what we like. And if people like it, I mean, that's awesome. But if they don't, we don't lose any sleep over it, essentially. Not trying to sound like a pompous ass or anything.
If they don't, fuck them.
Yeah.
No, I know what you're saying.
Right, yeah. But it is kind of that way, you know what I mean? You gotta be proud of what you do, and if you're not, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
That's exactly my attitude towards everything. Fuck them.
Fuck them.
Chad's a man of few words, but when he does, he's usually,
Fuck 'em?
just a couple. Yeah, it's a couple impactful ones.
Yeah. My favorite band right now is Attila, so.
Oh yeah, that's
Kind of a
pretty
dick.
that's pretty fuck 'em.
Yeah, definitely.
All fuckums aside, I think now might be a good time to kind of jump in and be like, we're definitely not trying to directly upset anyone by being like, whoa, yeah, fuck you guys, or we're the only
No.
ones sound this way. Definitely not that. So don't take it that way, listeners, please.
A good
Nah.
disclaimer.
Yeah.
So,
We always
No.
will end up with a
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, in
did
all
not
honesty-
want to incite any Columbus-ites going,
Yeah.
oh, I need to find a new local band to hate because they like their music and don't care what I think.
Right.
And-
I mean,
we made friends. We want to keep them too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so grateful, honestly, for everybody who like listens or comes and sees us or streams a song or buys a T-shirt or whatever. And we're always happy to talk to people and stuff. But you just got to have that mentality. It's the whole be proud of what you do and kind of fake it till you make it type attitude. That stuff goes a long way. But there's also a fine line of not being an asshole. Just being like a genuine good person. And if you can kind of find the balance between the two, I think, you're in a much better place as a band as far as, being able to be successful.
Well, I guess while we're talking about a hard subject matter, I suppose, if you could change anything about the current music industry or kind of the landscape of shows and stuff, what would you change?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I just wish there would be more people who are willing to listen to local music, if that makes sense. Like, not that there isn't, but it's, you got a lot of people who, be like, oh yeah, I'll go see your band, and then they never come up. And that happens
Right.
to anybody. Doesn't matter where you live, but because everybody, you could think of any band in the world, everybody was a unknown local band at one point, and they were able to get to where they were because people gave them a chance.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, even Metallica was a local band at some point.
Yeah.
And I think now the things are so oversaturated. There's so many forms of entertainment. You can get streaming services. People don't necessarily appreciate going to see live music, going to see people play instruments for them. And they might not be like, they might just think, oh, this is fine, it's streaming. They might not really know any better, but people have so many options to hear music that going out, like you used to have to go out to see these bands to hear the music. Now it's all over the place. There's people doing covers. There's people putting out their own solo acts. People can get somebody to come run a DJ booth, and they don't have to pay for a full band. Like, there's just so many options that paying for musicians to perform the music isn't necessarily a high priority like it used to be, just with all the other things that they could use instead or the other ways to get that type of media.
Yeah, that's well said.
I'm on the same kind of boat, kind of again with Cole and Nick both. It's like the people don't necessarily go and see shows anymore like they used to. I remember when I was in high school, it didn't even really matter who was playing or what style. Everyone was packing the venue, and that just doesn't seem to happen very often anymore. I And I don't know why that is. Going to concerts was always one of my favorite things to do when I was young, and even still now. So like, and I wish I could go to more. My work schedule permitting, I would go to every local show I could go to, because it really does. It means a lot to the bands. It means a lot to show what they're doing and kind of keep the ball rolling as far as a local scene can go. More people interacting and kind of making social circles and making more friends and acquaintances in your area. It can all happen at a concert, and all you got to do is show up.
We've lucked out. We've met some pretty hardworking bands in the area too that have reached out to lend a hand, or the show that we're playing here in November is with a band called A Decade Apart. They reached out to us just saying, hey, would you be interested? So some of the bigger players in the local area have not necessarily lend a hand, but just recognize what we're doing, trying to help us out as well, kind of a mutual benefit between the two. So we've gotten lucky playing some of the bigger venues in Columbus, and also just finding these other people kind of trying to get to the same goal, willing to lend us a hand along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, on branching off of Nick again, then, yeah, A Decade Apart, they're hooking us up with that show, and just over the last week, just kind of a little fun thing. I made a post on on my personal Facebook about we had just finally hit like 700 likes, and one of the guys from Atamera, their guitar player Mike, he decided to take it upon himself because he felt we should have a bigger social media number than that. So he and the guys in the band also, they like sent out a bunch of likes and everything. And I think Cole probably watches the number a little bit closer than I have lately.
Totally. 11:55.
11:55. So in about a week's time, we jumped from 700 to 11:55, and that was, thanks to the guys in Atamera, and Ashley is part of Smash Attack, or Smashly as I've taken to calling her.
Smashly?
Yeah, just because I know like 5 Ashleys, so it just makes it easier to differentiate her. And so
she's also in the Pittsburgh area too, so she's been a good help, a good liaison, and sort of, okay, hey, check out this venue, check out this band.
I wonder if I know her. I don't know if I know.
Yeah,
Smashly.
she does Smash Attack promotions. I knew her from some other bands. Like I've played in bands in like the Ohio Valley area, and I've been up into Pittsburgh a little bit. I knew her just like over Facebook, just from other bands who were friends with her. I started talking to her recently because she did a review of our music, and but she used to work for another, like with somebody else, and there was some sort of a falling out. So she's kind of been rebranding it all on her own. But I mean, she's been a great help. She's worked with some other companies and stuff in the past, but yeah, I mean, she's much like the information that you provided has been a big help for us trying to expand into Pittsburgh now.
Well, I will be happy to come see you guys once you get here, and I think the whole kind of like tri-state area right now is such a hotbed for rock and metal, and I keep hearing this line of thinking, just reading it on the internet, and baby boomers yelling at clouds, like that kind of thing. Oh, rock's dead. It's not how it used to be. It's, back in my day, I could go see Led Zeppelin, and it's...
They still can with Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's two sides to every argument, but I just think for anybody to say that, I'm like, open your eyes, dude. Like, you can, and hopefully Columbus is the same way, you can go to a show in Pittsburgh any night of the week. Now, whether the venue is going to be packed or not, that's a different story, but the opportunity is there. And there is a hunger, I think, for genuine hard rock and just stuff that can connect with your listeners' ears. And we do live in a time where it's easily accessible. And then when you take the next step and you start touring and you start venturing out and getting in front of people, I mean, to me, that makes all the difference. And I'm glad that you guys are one of the few that are, okay, we're going to take this next step. We're going to go out and put ourselves in front of everybody. And that takes a lot of sacrifice, though, too. So that, I suppose, is a good segue to my next question, which would be, have you had any crazy like show horror stories or really bad experiences that have kind of changed you guys as a band, or sort of made you reconsider what you're doing?
I don't think so, as boring as that might sound.
It's not a very good answer.
No,
But
that's
yeah,
fine.
through the couple events, I guess we played kind of an open house at a recording studio. So we haven't played out a ton yet as Faith and Failure, but everything's gone pretty smoothly. The venues, like I said, that we've played have been a little bit bigger in the area. We played Ace of Cups and we played Scully's for the Red Jumpsuit Show. They're all pretty professional organizations. The people that run them always do a really good job. So when we get there, stuff's pretty streamlined. So we've lucked out just playing the bigger venues as we've hit the ground running, that things have gone smoothly and the people that are running it know what they're doing.
Yeah, and even just being like, there's a promotional company called Bravo Artist, and a lot of local bands will go through them, but they took a chance on us because of their relationship with Aaron and Sergio's old band. And so like our first show was we were opening for Silent Planet right before they hit the road this year with August Burns Red and Silverstein. So we got to like our very first show. I mean, we played in front of a lot of people at a nice venue downtown, and then they offered us the Red Jumpsuit show, and then we got this other one now. So like we've had people have reached out to us, and I think that I think people enjoy the music, but I also think that like we try to be as professional as possible, whether it's communicating through emails or in person or whatever. I think that also goes a long way, where they took a chance on us, and they want to keep working with us, and it's just, I think that's one of the reasons we keep getting these offers.
Mm-hmm. Not to derail here for a second, but I believe Matt has just joined.
Oh,
He did.
hey, Matt.
Oh,
Matt.
hey.
Yes.
Hey.
Okay, so we're now speaking with Matt. So we now have everybody in Faith and Failure.
The whole
in this
band
little...
is here.
The whole band is here.
Yeah.
Matt, you are the bassist, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so now we get to start the interview all over again. No,
Thanks a lot, Dick.
Matt, let me just ask you a couple brief things so our listeners can get to know you a little bit too. It sounds like you and Cole are kind of the original two members, but Matt, why don't you just quickly tell me a little bit about how you came to be a bass player and what makes you want to play music?
Well, a lot of it started out with guitar. Got frustrated, and then right, every bass player's famous last words. So then I jumped back to bass, and it just kind of clicked. I really started listening to like Tool's a big inspiration, and like Mudvayne was a big inspiration. There goes Cole. It just made me really want to kind of like learn bass and all the fundamentals of it, and I've just had a lot of fun with it. And music is just a big part of my life. It always has been. I grew up listening to 80s hair bands and Ozzy and all that from my parents, and I don't know, it's always been a big part of it, and I kind of want to continue that in my life and just do something with it. So it's a big passion of mine.
Okay, excellent. And thanks for hopping in as we're kind of gearing down towards the end of the interview. I appreciate you coming in. So we now have the full band on display here. I guess since now all five of you guys are here, I haven't really asked you about what your writing process is like in general. We kind of already did go over a little bit of, sort of who does what, like Cole says he doesn't write lyrics, that sort of thing. But when you guys all get in a room together, how do you come up with your songs?
Funny thing about that is that we've never all written a song together.
No, we haven't. No.
Really?
Yeah, I wrote. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, we write like Cole and I have written a lot of earlier stuff, mostly Cole, and then we kind of adapted it, and then like we show another member, and then it just kind of blooms and blossoms from there. But
yeah,
so it's like the telephone game a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like now I still do a lot of writing on my own, but Aaron, we live so close to each other that him and I write together a lot. And the funny thing is like now that we actually have a drummer in the band, I use like a bunch of drum plug-in programs like Superior Drummer, Easy Drummer stuff for Pro Tools. And so we'll have drum parts, and sometimes I write things that maybe aren't the most easily playable on the drums for Nick, and he kind of hates me for a little while, but either he adjusts it to something that's more doable, or he learns it and then he doesn't hate me as much.
Come on, Nick, your favorite band is Rush. Can you
Yeah, I know.
not step it up a little bit? Jeez, man.
It's all right. I pay him back when I get in the room with them. I'm always like, hey, what if there were like chimes in this part? Or hey, what if you did that? And they're like, all right, we're not inviting you ever again. So I get my payback during the writing process.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice though. But I mean, yeah, the writing process is as simple. I write a lot with drums, so I'll hear like a drum track on YouTube, or I'll find something within Pro Tools and kind of go off of that. Aaron's been getting more and more active, sort of writing on his own, and he'll send me like videos and stuff of something he's been kind of working with. And Matt always does that too. He'll send me clips of like bass riffs and stuff that he comes up with, and then I'll usually try to demo everything out, as complete as possible. Then we send it to Chad, and then Chad writes stuff, and then we find out at the next rehearsal, what he's doing, and then we kind of, so it's kind of what it is. It's sort of a mismatch of a lot of stuff, but it seems to fit with how we do things because, the idea might be from one or two people, but everybody chips in, and, it tends to work out for the better.
That's honestly so interesting because as a person not in a band, I always have this outsider perspective where it's like, okay, we have the 5 people who are perfectly in tune with each other, and we know exactly what the other one's thinking, and we're just this hive mind that can just get in a room together and bang out a track, and we can finish each other's sentences. But I think it's a lot sloppier and more organic than that most of the time. So I guess thank you for confirming that.
Yeah, like everybody's allowed to. Everybody writes their own stuff. Like Matt, I never tell him what to play on bass. I'll tell him what I'm doing, and then I leave him to his devices. Same with Chad. Same with Nick for the most part. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, keep that one thing in there though.
Yeah.
Other stuff you can kind of do what you want with it.
If you hear like a lot of like our like the demo tracks that like are very like in early stages, like the final, like they're almost not completely opposite of each other, but they're very, very different because of everybody else's input and thought process and everything. So it kind of has a lot of dynamic to it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a very interesting thought there. That's why I love asking people that question, because I could get 30 different answers. Some people are like, "Oh yeah, I wake up in the middle of the night and I write down my weird ass dream I had, and then my song's done the next morning." And I'm like, "Wow, okay, I can't do that." But so all of you guys too, now that you're all here, I guess really, what would your biggest piece of advice be for people who are trying to do what you do? Because there are all over the country groups of 4 or 5 guys and girls getting together trying to make something happen. What's your biggest piece of advice you could pass along?
Jump into it as with whatever you can. Like even if you've got like the cheapest instrument and you can't put new strings on it or whatever, just keep trying to do it. Especially if you've got people to work on it together, because that's always the hardest part. And if you don't have someone to work on it with, see how far you can do it on your own. That's kind of, I don't want to speak for him too much. That's kind of what Cole did with Matt for the longest time, was just keep on trying and finding the pieces that fit until the one tall goofy kid responds to a Craigslist ad, and some dude that plays drums in a million bands decided, hey, I want to play metal now.
Yeah, I would say too, just do what you want. I mean, stay true to what your likes and your interests are and your styles. Don't try to conform to what you think people want to hear, because I think even if you're writing something that might seem kind of off the wall, if you put 100% of your heart and soul into it, I think that comes across in what you're doing, and I think people will respect that because they'll pick up on it. And I think it's a better way to create an environment where you'll get more fans organically, and people who will, not just buy one song and then never listen to you ever again. Like, you'll get people more for the long haul. So just stay true to yourself. And then the other thing is, don't expect to make money. Excuse me. At least for a while, you don't
not for a while.
Yeah, you don't start a band to become rich. It just, sometimes it might happen, but you'll spend a lot of money. That's for sure.
Sad, but unfortunately true.
Sad but true.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of
the
cases.
biggest thing too, I would say, is if you start writing music for other people, in a sense, is the moment you become one of those washed up, sold out musicians that only does it for a paycheck, and you will eventually hate it. So just do it because that's what that's what you want to fucking do. Like, just do it. Like, yeah.
Chad was on Matt's microphone.
Yeah.
I think
Serious.
I think the other four guys will echo this too, but professionalism goes a long way. And knowing that this is going to also be a business, like, yeah, it's fun. We've all had a great time. I'm not saying we're all these crazy businessmen with all this intrinsic ability to just go out and know how to work all these business deals, but just being polite, being thoughtful, like when you interact with promoters, interacting with other bands, like, there's not a big pool of resources. Like Cole said, there's not a lot of money out there just getting started. So if you're isolating people or you're alienating people off the bat because you don't know how to have a professional conversation or you don't know how to interact with people, you're going to be way behind the curve trying to move up and trying to make this into something.
High five to that, Nick, honestly, because there are a lot of assholes out there who ruin they ruin the music scene for the rest of us who do just want to show up and pay you your $12 ticket and see a good show and then go home.
Nick coming in with his hashtag grown ass man advice.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes the adulting gets in the way, and it's not to say you can't have fun, you can't have your stage presence, you can't have a good time, you can't, I don't know, let loose on stage, whatever. But when you get off stage, when you're dealing with people, these promoters are taking a chance on you to try and make sure they can pay their bills as well as make sure they put on good events. So if you can help them out by making their job a little bit easier, it goes a long way with your progress as well as getting invited back and making sure things are a little less stressful on their end.
Well, that kind of answers my next question, too, because I was just going to say sort of what's the most valuable piece of advice you've been given or the most important lesson you've learned. But it sounds like you guys have that pretty much covered. Like, kindness and professionalism do go a long way. Says me besmirching your good name by dropping hashtag fuck 'em now all throughout this interview. I think the layer of sarcasm should be highly evident, but in case it's not,
Yeah, I saw there was an Avenged documentary from the late 2000s, and they were talking about that. Their interview, or their manager was being interviewed, and he talked about the first time they went on the road with Metallica, and they got to see how Metallica operates as a business. You know, they're not just the four guys you see on stage, but it's all of the crew, all of their merch people, all of their people who handle online stuff and booking and like every aspect that I think people never realize. And it takes more than just the 4 or 5 people on stage to make a band go. And so we kind of take that mindset as, we're a band, but we're also a business. And we've been very fortunate to work with some amazing people who have wanted to help us, from a guy named Ross. I never remember if I could pronounce his last name right. I think it's DCN. He'll yell at me later. But,
he's the one who took. Close. Yeah, he took your band photos too. So I think I will mention his name when the episode goes up and stuff too.
Perfect.
Yeah, so he's done all of our photos. He's taught us how to promote online. He's done artwork for us. My sister, Carrie Kaluger, takes our live photos. We've worked with Nick Ingram here in Columbus, Capitol House Studio, who's recorded our last 2 songs. Mike Ofka in Innovation Studios in Steubenville recorded our first 2 songs. And then, just all of our friends, family, significant others. I mean, there's been so many people who have been so supportive of us, and, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now, without any of them. So that's kind of the sort of the overall mentality of the band is like, it's more than just the 5 of us. We gotta make sure that we credit everybody else, and, and we're always gracious and thankful for everything anybody does for us.
That is refreshing to hear. Well, this is harder to split up, I guess, because there's 5 of you guys, but typically as I start to end my interviews, I will ask my very important question, which I swear is not just to piss off the people I'm interviewing, but I always like to ask if each one of you could only listen to 3 albums for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Who wants to take that one first?
Just heard an
Man.
exasperated sigh.
Dream Theater, Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, is
My
definitely
man.
number one on my list. Oh man, Asking Alexandria, Reckless and Relentless is a must-have for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to say Pyromania, Def Leppard.
Oh, okay. All right.
You just stole one of Aaron's.
Dream Theater caught me off guard.
I just want to say he said Pyromania because above where he's looking, I have the Pyromania record above, like mounted on the wall. It's like he's
Cool.
cheating.
Easy answer.
Still my favorite band.
All right. It's funny that I was making fun of Chad for listing stuff that was hanging on Aaron's wall, because I think I'm going to list some albums that are hanging on my wall. One of them would probably be Rush, Moving Pictures. I mean, that's kind of a cliche, I think, at this point, but you can't go wrong with Rush. And that album is kind of their standard that everybody knows for a reason. There's definitely good songs elsewhere, but that's a good album. The Ghost prequel or prequel album, their most recent full-length release, I think is definitely up there. And I'm very late to the party, but probably Avenged Sevenfold's self-titled album. I think I've gotten a lot of miles out of that recently. I discovered them in the classic year of 2018 and started listening to them regularly. So I'm about
Almost
20 years
late.
behind. I'm 20
fellow
years
late
late to the
bloomer.
Avenged. To the Avenged train. But I would say their self-titled album is definitely one. As I've gotten deeper into some of their material, even some of their older stuff, I think that one's really resonated. Just the style and some of the crazy off-the-wall stuff they did in that one.
All right.
So I'm gonna jump in like I said I was before. I'll segue off Chad a little bit, and I'll say Def Leppard's Hysteria is gonna be very up there for me. And then I'm gonna unintentionally copy Nick a little bit, but I'm gonna go with a little bit older and do Waking the Fallen from Avenged Sevenfold. And then I'm stuck on the last one. It's a really hard choice, but I don't think I can take two, but I would say either I'm torn between Meliora from Ghost or The Poison from Bullet for My Valentine.
Ooh.
I'm torn between those two.
I would pick Meliora, but that's only because the only Bullet for My Valentine song I know is Waking the Demon because it was in Rock Band. Sorry, shame on me.
That's fair. That
Still counts.
fair. It counts. It does. Chad wants to say something.
I just want to, between my bandmates here, not including Matt, I want to make a bet here that Matt is going to name 3 Tool albums.
I'm not gonna bet. I think I could tell you all 3 that he's gonna do, but I'll let him say his.
No. I want Cole. I want Cole to guess it first.
You want me to guess it?
this first. Yeah, go ahead.
It would be 10,000. Was it 10,000 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that LD50 from Mudvayne, and then Issues from Korn.
You got one of the 3 right.
Ah,
Wow.
son of a bitch.
That's pretty good, though. There's a lot of albums out there.
So Tool's Lateralis,
Okay.
LD50 by Mudvayne, and Follow the Leader by Korn.
I was gonna say that, but I
Wow,
was like,
that's-
I remember you specifically drawing the cover to Issues so much that I was like, it's gotta be Issues.
That's still
Yeah.
pretty intimate level of knowledge of your bandmates' musical taste. So that's.
I had
I'll
a
give you
bonus
credit.
album that I couldn't decide on, but
What's your bonus?
it was Flaw. What was the first album they had? Through the Eyes. That's what it was. Probably nobody knows who they are, but
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of them. Flaw.
you would probably
were they,
like them. That's a damn good album.
Were they like kind of like the post grungy sort of thing, or when
They
were
were
they
like
popular?
the post like edgy hard rocks. Like Payback was like their big song that they had.
Okay, I might know it if I pull it up, but
You probably would, yeah.
Flaw.
It was all over. Like it was back when like you could like VH1 like still did like music videos and like
Yeah.
all that like that kind of
Matt, you want to take a guess on mine, Matt?
I'm gonna say they're all Avenged albums.
Only one is. Nah,
I'm gonna say
he-
it's City of Evil.
no, Nightmare.
Damn.
Nightmare
Okay.
is my
That was
favorite
gonna be
just
my second
because it's just because of the circumstances. That album being completed after the Rev had passed. So, that album will forever be not only my favorite album of all time, but my favorite album of them. I would also say Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge from My Chemical Romance. I would say maybe a slightly less known, The Human Abstract. Their last
Digital
album,
Veil?
Digital Veil, is
Yes.
a masterpiece of that.
That
That
is-
is prog at its best.
That's a band
And-
that needs to still be around, and they aren't.
I know. I was so disappointed when they split. I'm still holding out hope though, but
You and me both.
and then I get, like I was kind of torn between that and if I would just have like a bonus one, I would say American Idiot from Green Day.
Okay, are you my ex-girlfriend? Because all of those albums, like,
I might be.
yes,
Might
Cole
be.
is my ex-girlfriend. No, those
Yeah.
are all bands and specifically albums that she loved. Weirdly enough, but
He has good taste.
sorry, I don't want to take it that direction. I just realized that I was like, this is why we didn't work out because I don't like Green Day. Sorry. Nah.
That's okay. I'll forgive you.
MCR is a band that I feel like Nick saying this. I just didn't I didn't listen to them when they were around or when they were popular, and then I listened to them like 2 years ago for the first time, and I'm like, oh, okay, I got
Like,
it.
The Black Parade is so good, but for me, I love Three Cheers. That was the first album I heard, so it's kind of got that, that sort of special nostalgic place, But you can't go wrong with either that or the Black Parade.
Fair enough. Well, thank you guys for listing off all those albums because sometimes it's contentious, but I honestly love asking that in the big band situations because it's hilarious to me when you guys can like fill in each other's answers. It always makes me happy. So, real quick before I kind of sign this thing off, could you just mention a little bit about that show that's coming up in November? And I'm going to try to do my best to get this episode out before then so I can help promote that a little bit.
Yeah, it's November 15th, which is a Friday, and it's at A&R Music Bar, which is downtown Columbus in the Arena District. So it's like right next door to the baseball stadium, right next door to Express Live. It's a decade apart. It's the headlining band. There's us. There's Noise Auction, the Lost Boys Collective, and Deadbeat. Tickets are through Ticketmaster. You can order them online, or we've got them. Cheaper if you buy them through
from
us.
us.
Yes,
Order
buy
them
them from the
us.
band.
They're
We'll mail
$10.
them to you.
You'll save a couple dollars, but yeah,
Yeah,
you can
I
order
will.
them
I
through
will
us.
send links to all you guys out, and then
we
you can go
accept
buy the
PayPal
tickets.
too, so
Nice,
you don't-
on the cutting
yeah.
edge.
right?
Absolutely.
We even have Square
Venmo,
readers if you show up.
Cash App.
Nice.
Yeah,
See,
we
these guys
take all
know
that
their
stuff.
shit.
Don't let him fool you though. It doesn't have the chip reader. So
No, we don't have the chip reader. We're not 2019. We're like more like 2016 right now. We'll get there eventually. But yeah, so that's the show. We're gonna be posting a lot about it. Over the next couple of weeks, and it would be great if anybody wants to make the trek out from Pittsburgh. I mean,
Three-ish
I tell you
hour
what,
drive. It's easy.
if anybody wants to drive from Pittsburgh, message me. I will personally buy your ticket.
Ooh.
That's better than me. I was gonna say half off the ticket for anyone who's coming, but yeah, if Cole's buying,
now-
Cole's buying.
Cole's
Now
buying.
I wonder if I can get Julia Mulligan. I know you're going to listen to this episode. We need to arrange a caravan from my house to go to Columbus on the 15th. You and me,
I'm gonna
girlfriend,
say-
we're going to make it happen.
I'll buy like 5 tickets.
I will
Don't-
buy some fucking beers. I'll buy you all fucking beer.
Well, this will keep the fire under my ass to get this episode edited and out because I can drag my feet a little bit. Life keeps me busy, but I will do my best to get this out so that you guys can hopefully have some people who come over, get some local people coming out. I would love to see you guys live, and really just thank you for spending a little bit of your Sunday with me, and I had a good time talking to you all. It's nice having all 5 of you guys here, and thanks to you, Matt, for hopping in at the last second. But is there anything else you guys want to mention?
I will say that we will be in Pittsburgh sooner than later. We're
Yeah.
just kind of waiting on just some details to get ironed out. So if by chance you can't make the trip to Columbus, we will be in Pittsburgh here fairly soon. So
Good.
you can always make the trek to see us, much closer to home.
In your
Right.
backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
But you could also still come to Columbus.
That too. I mean, hey, if you come to more shows, Matt will buy your tickets to the Pittsburgh show. I'll buy your tickets to the Columbus
Yeah,
show.
using Cole's debit card.
Yeah,
No.
did I say I was gonna buy you all beer? I meant Matt's gonna buy all of you beer.
Yeah,
Chad is gonna buy everyone White Claw.
that's
Oh,
true.
nice. Nice.
Bro,
Nope.
being,
That's
like,
my
classy
dream
or not,
endorsement.
Truly.
Dream endorsement, Faith in Failure, sponsored by White Claw.
Hey, we got like a pseudo whiskey kind of partnership thing here, not officially.
Maybe a little bit.
What unofficial whiskey are you sponsored by?
So
That's Nick's department.
So we
Why
kind
does
of
it
left
sound
out
so
my.
illegal right now? We have some unofficial whiskey that we're selling. It's
It's like the Prohibition era is back.
It's on the table. Just ask for Ren, and that's it. That's all you gotta do.
So
I'm intrigued.
My girlfriend's roommate is actually here from Ireland, working with Tullamore Dew whiskey.
No shit.
So she's a brand ambassador, goes around, does tastings, does all this crazy stuff. So she actually came out to to our show at Scully's when we opened for Red Jumpsuit, and she was giving away some of the free stuff. They had like shot glasses, whatever. So she actually ran our merch table and was giving away some of their stuff too, along with our shirts and everything else. So we're fingers crossed. We're trying to see if we can make that into something a little more official, but.
And if she's at another show, she can actually be the one to buy your drinks because her company pays for it.
No, my mind
Don't say that.
is blown right now because I used to work at a restaurant, and of course, like whenever the alcohol, the marketing people, they come in and they pitch stuff to your bar, a lot of times they give you promotional t-shirts for your whole back of house staff. I have a Tullamore Dew t-shirt.
Hey.
So if I can get to Columbus,
Small
I'm going to
world.
show up wearing it, and you're going to be like,
you
oh,
absolutely
hey.
need to bring that along.
yeah.
Maybe
This also
maybe
gets,
she'll sign it for you.
yeah,
There
right.
you go.
This also gets one layer weirder. Aaron, I mentioned it earlier in this interview how you look like my friend Jason, who plays bass in a Pittsburgh-based band here called Silence Follows. His band was also, for a while, sponsored by a whiskey company. And I
Was
think
it Cold Cock?
Cold Cock, yeah. And I think
Oh,
I
that's
think
a
they
good
went
one.
under or something, or they sold all their stock. I don't remember what happened, but
I
he
think
was
they
a big
went
fan
under
of
when
it.
Mayhem went under.
That is so bizarre. Such a small world. Well, either way, I'm gonna direct people to go try to see you in Columbus, and if they can't make that, hopefully we'll see you guys here in Pittsburgh. But again, thank you for spending a little bit of your Sunday with me, and I will blast out everything for you guys and get some links.
Yeah, thank you.
Heading out to the internet. So,
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for being here, and I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday night.
Yeah, thank you. Much
We
appreciated.
appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Kelly.
Hey everybody, that has been episode 29 of Tapestry, and again, this has been Faith in Failure that you've been listening to me interview. Big thing to say first is, as you heard Cole say at the end of the interview, he is actually willing to buy some tickets for people who want to carpool over from Pittsburgh to Columbus for their show on November 15th, which is at the A&R Music Bar in downtown Columbus, and they're going to be playing with A Decade Apart, Noise Auction, The Lost Boys Collective, and Deadbeat. So if you want to get over there, it's only a 3.5-hour drive. But hit me up if you're interested. You can find Faith in Failure anywhere you can find music, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. But they also have a website. It's www.faithinfailure.com. They are on Instagram and Facebook under Official Faith in Failure. As always, thanks for listening.